This is the world's first ever actual pool of Jell-O. And while it may look simple, it's actually a very difficult engineering challenge to pull off. As proof, if you Google Jell-O pool, you will either find bad CGI or a handful of videos of people who tried to do this, but it really didn't work out. So today, we're gonna answer possibly the longest standing question from my childhood: what would it be like to actually belly flop in a pool of Jell-O? But before we do that, I want to talk about what we actually had to go through for the past 6 months to pull this off. The idea of a Jell-O pool has been on my bucket list for over 4 years. In fact, when Kevin from the Backyard Scientists and I made the 25 million Orbeez pool, our first idea was to do a pool of Jell-O. But it's really hard, because if you've ever made Jell-O, you might recall you first have to boil water, then mix in the powder, and then you have to refrigerate it for it to actually get firm. And that's easy enough to do for a small dish, but how do you boil and then refrigerate an entire pool? This seemed like a very worthy engineering challenge. So last year at Thanksgiving, my brother and I came up with a plan, and then in the middle of winter, we started digging a hole in his backyard. Then over the course of 2 months, we set up a bunch of small-scale experiments because we needed to answer questions like how much gelatin powder does it actually take to get to the ideal firmness, and how hot and then cold does the mixture actually need to get for the Jell-O chemical reaction to take place so it will actually get firm. And from our experiments, we learned the Jell-O always got firm as long as the mixture got hotter than 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So we decided we could scale this up by using 6 55-gallon drums with a custom propane burner underneath and a spigot we welded to the sides, but more on that later. So now we knew how we were going to heat it up, but how do you refrigerate an entire pool? For that, we teamed up with Mother Nature and just picked the perfect location and time of year. We installed a thermometer, and starting in January, we tracked the temperature in his backyard every night. We needed refrigerator temperatures at night, but not freezer temperatures, because that would freeze the Jell-O, and our experiments showed that totally ruins it. And so after looking at our data plus historical temperature plots, we knew we had about a 3-week sweet spot window towards the end of April to pull this off. Our goal was to have a Jell-O pool party in his backyard that would make even Phineas and Ferb jealous. So the plan was to start 7 days before the party and fill the pool with an average of 10 barrels every day. That would give each layer a chance to get exposed to the cold night air to more efficiently get rid of the heat. And so with that, first thing Saturday, a full week before the party, we got to work. We didn't want to waste actual food, so this is just water and gelatin powder and food coloring, but there's no sugar. We intentionally placed our barrels much higher than the pool, so when we were ready, we could use the potential energy to move the Jell-O from the barrels to the pool. We had to tackle about 1,000 other issues that came up that I won't bore you with, but day by day and layer by layer, the pool began to fill up. Because the Jell-O went in with so much heat energy we needed to remove before it could get firm, in addition to using the cold night air, my brother's neighbor Nick happened to have a spare swamp cooler in his shop. So we kept that running over the top of the pool pretty much the whole week. This gave us convection cooling. It's the equivalent of rolling down a car window for the pool, or like when you blow on the top of a hot cup of soup. This constantly replaces the boundary layer of air right at the surface with fresh cold air that will suck out the heat more efficiently. And so as we put in the final batch Friday night, with ominous weather threatening to ruin the whole effort, at this point, we had done all we could. We were exhausted after a week, and I wasn't feeling super confident because my specialty is more with mechanical things, and this project was more about chemistry and thermodynamics. And I didn't want that lame jelly boff stuff people try and pass off as Jell-O. And so even if it didn't last long in the sun, I wanted to at least have the experience of seeing even a single belly flop on a smooth pool of actual Jell-O. If this was going to be a total failure, it wouldn't be from lack of effort. And so we woke up Saturday morning with a forecast for a warm, sunny day, and we pulled off the tarp to find a pool filled with actual freaking Jell-O. By this point, word in the neighborhood had definitely spread around as to what we were up to, and my brother asked if some of their friends' kids could have first dibs. And so with that, I'm happy to report this is what it looks like to belly flop in a pool of Jell-O. When I first got in myself, it was closer to the middle of the day, and one of the things we discovered was that direct sunlight over time had the effect of undoing some of the solidness of the lower layers. When you go in, it just like fills your nose and like ears. It's a very surreal feeling of just being like, it's kind of hard to move, but it's just slimy and slippery. It actually feels really cool. We have some pool toys hidden underneath. Got it! Wow. It's unlike anything. It's like swimming in snot, if that makes any sense. But like a good snot. To keep it solid for even longer, if we were to do it again, we might put in a heat exchanger pipe system beneath the surface, sort of like how they freeze indoor ice skating rinks. And maybe use a little sugar. That's disgusting. Now at this point you might be thinking, why would anyone spend the effort of 6 months of planning and then a solid week of back-breaking effort just to make a stupid pool of Jell-O? And to that I say, why do people go through the effort of climbing Mount Everest? Why did Neil Armstrong go through the effort of stepping on the moon? And why did Pam and Jim go through the effort of convincing Dwight that Jim had always been Asian?
This is Jim.
Sometimes you don't do a thing because you should, but simply to prove that you can. Now that my curiosity was fully satiated, and in my ongoing quest to be the favorite uncle, I told my nephews they could invite some of their friends over, and my brother's family set up a neighborhood barbecue. And at this point, after a lot of hours of belly flops and bowling balls and direct sunlight, the Jell-O was pretty broken down, but that didn't stop us from setting up a Jell-O pool slip and slide. And I loved their sense of adventure, but it was a bit of an uncle fail moment because apparently none of them have ever used a slip and slide.
And everybody starts to move as soon as Panda starts to play.
We didn't actually put any sugar in here, so it's kind of disgusting. So we've got some real gin. This was a bucket list video idea I've had for as long as I can remember, and I wouldn't have been able to pull it off if it wasn't for the support of my friends at NordVPN. As I'm sure you know by now, by using a VPN, you can surf the web anonymously, your location stays private, and your data is encrypted. And for my friends in the EU, you might have heard recently that Article 13 passed. That means that a lot of the websites you love to use will be forced to be far more restrictive. And we're not saying you do this, but hypothetically, if you're using a VPN, you can virtually teleport and trick the internet to think you're in any country you want. And NordVPN is the best because they have thousands of servers in over 61 countries, plus they have a 30-day money-back guarantee on the super remote chance you try it and for some reason you're not totally satisfied. But to virtually teleport all around the world, or given today's headlines, if you're just ready to take your privacy more seriously, you can go to nordvpn.com/markrober or use the link in the video description for 75% off their 3-year plans, which works out to less than $3 a month. So it's nordvpn.com/markrober, and if you use the code MarkRober at checkout, they'll throw in an extra month for free. Thanks for watching.